Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
The public presentation of the book Writing for the Media and Monetizing It, held on the 26th of June 2024 at the Shehu Yaradua International Conference Center in Abuja. A sterling review by former presidential aide Dr. Reuben Abati described the book as a much-needed linkage and transition between schools and the world of media practice. Also, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Alhaji Mohammed Idris, urged writers, columnists, authors, and media industry to pay more attention to the commercial side of writing so that they can benefit from their enormous creativity. On this episode of Money Radio, our business and financial analysis program, the author of the book, Writing for the Media and Monetizing It, and editor-in-chief of the leadership group of newspapers, Azu Ishiekwene, sheds light on the book, journalism, enterprise, and why content creators should reap financial rewards from their creativity. My name is Julius Oga, and my guest is none other than the author of A Rave in Town, titled Writing for the Media and Monetizing It, Mr. Azu Ishiekwene. You're welcome to Money Radio, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a question and answer session. So, D-Day finally came yesterday, and the public presentation of your seminal work was, in my reckoning, a huge success. What is your post-event assessment?
Well, thank you once again for having me. I'm still reflecting, obviously. First, I must say that I was deeply gratified by the collection of the galaxy of stars, that honored the invitation to be present there. It's really gratifying to have professionals and people from all walks of life in their numbers, show up to support and express their solidarity, so to speak. But as you know, and the event has held. Then, obviously, there will be post-event analysis of how did the event go and so forth. But in terms of the turnout, I think the turnout was good. I also think that the quality of the program was also very good. That's the feedback I have received so far. I also believe that the engagement in terms of the real content, because it was a 2-in-1 program, or the book presentation, and of course there was a panel of discussion, which was chaired by Professor Abiodun Ademi, Professor of Mass Communication at this university. So that was the second leg of it. And my initial sense up to this time is that both went off very well. And of course, you have talked about the review by Dr. Reuben Abati, the man we call Monumental. So I think that the program on the whole went well. And of course, the actual sales have commenced. And that is ongoing. But so far, so good.
Okay, you almost preempted me. I was going to ask if the checks and alerts are rolling in yet.
Well, sales have commenced, shall we say, and sales will continue sales will just be ongoing. After the public presentation yesterday and the formal launch, we are obviously already now exploring some avenues for the sale of the books, bookshops and libraries and schools and so forth and so on. So that really will be the next phase of the marketing.
Now, of much concern to me, and I believe other journalists, is there are writers begging for their writings to be published. There are program producers looking for stations, TV or radio, live or virtual, to publish or broadcast their programs. Is your book a solution to this cognitive dilemma?
My book is not a silver bullet. I must warn.
That's modest. I like that.
I think it's just an intervention that I think that I'm hoping will be able to inspire people to pay more attention, hopefully, in terms of being intentional about creating content. Okay, that really is very important. So yes, I mean it's not a silver bullet, but I think as the reviewer also said, and which is also a reflection of the feedback that I have received so far, there is clearly a psychometric gap between what exists in the schools and what exists in the workplace. So it's also a resource that is meant to plug that gap. It's meant to inspire people to be more intentional about the content that they create. It's meant also to help people adapt in a fast evolving media ecosystem, especially with AI and all of those things, how they can still retain the originality and be able to use these new tools very well. And also for, apart from those in schools, older folks also who would like to reinvent themselves in terms of content creation. I think there are a few nuggets in the book that they might find valuable.
Interesting. I want to ask this question, rather personal. You are very widely syndicated. You're very widely syndicated columnist, perhaps the most syndicated columnist presently in Nigeria. Do you get paid on all the
Good question.
that publish
I get paid on some, and others I don't get paid. I mean, so I'm also, apart from writing locally and, as you have said, a few international platforms, I also provide content for some international news agencies. And when you provide content for international news agencies, and if they are not the run-of-the-mill content, sometimes they commission you to write on special topics. Yes, you get paid, and I dare say you get paid handsomely for that. And that not only covers the cost of, sometimes that not only covers the cost of what you give away for free, but also, helps to extend the value of your brand, of the work that you do. So it's not in all cases that one gets paid. And if you hope to get paid in all cases, as Jonathan Power said, I think you are better off perhaps learning plumbing as a second job. I mean, that's just by the way. So, but ultimately, as you make impact, as you create more value in the content that you make, people tend to pay attention. And when they call on you to provide special content, then you can charge. But it's actually an ongoing phase. I mean, the presentation of the book for itself as a potential source of revenue. After the presentation of the book, which has happened, as you said yesterday, there are other phases that we have lined up that will also help expand the streams of revenue that potentially one can get from writing such a book.
All right, going back to the review, Dr. Abati raised a fundamental question about ethics and practice. If my question is, if enterprise journalism takes the lead, will journalists remain on the side of accountability and social justice?
I do not think that profitability. I do not think that profitability or getting reward for content and good journalism are mutually exclusive. I don't think so. And it's not just me saying it. Of course, there was a model which existed for a long time of a real thick dividing wall between the marketing and advert department of many news organizations and the editorial. But we've seen that actually seriously collapse over the years, or at least find a way to have a handshake that does not necessarily jeopardize journalism itself as the work that we're supposed to do. I do not think that entrepreneurship cannot exist side by side with good quality journalism, because good morality. And because good journalism also costs. It costs money to produce good journalism, and that you can. I mean, that's
always a footnote on the page of your publisher. That's Premium Times.
It costs good journalism costs money, and so I think it's what we bear in mind. But of course, it's also the point about whether ethics was sufficiently covered in the book or not. It's a point that it's neither here nor there. It's not a book about it's not about a book about ethics. There's a bit of law on it, which what you also, but that is not a book about ethics. But as to whether good journalism can exist side by side with being entrepreneurial, many schools these days teach entrepreneurship as part of the content that of the curriculum that they offer journalism students. And there's a reason why that's happening, because of the sort of crisis that it's not just journalism, but particularly journalism is also facing of existential crisis, if you like. So people need to think differently about the ways of doing things that would not necessarily compromise the fundamental job of accountability which journalism is supposed to be about.
And finally, how soon is this book getting into the faculties and the syllabi of journalism and training institutions? And what will be the cost implication for you as the author and perhaps for the publisher?
One of the reasons why we had the public presentation was because we are hoping to be able to close the gap between the production cost of the book and what it will cost when we eventually put it, when we eventually take the book to the universities and students. And so that has started already, but we are doing that in phases. I'm aware that the Lagos State University, for example, has already put on its Facebook wall called attention of students in the mass comm and in the mass comm
social sciences
to the book, that it's a resource that they'll find valuable. The second phase, the post public launch phase, would not only take me on reading tours, but also on promotional tours to universities, where hopefully I would have redeemed enough of the pledges and money spent to be able to put the book on shelves in schools at a cost that students can afford.
All right. Your final remarks. What would you have said that I haven't been able to figure or ask?
I think that it's important for folks to keep in mind that value, money flows in the direction of value. And that is the essential message of this afternoon and hopefully of the book. You cannot be talking about money without trying to give more value. If you want more, you have to be more. You have to give more. And so that is essentially a point about monetizing content. That it is, by the time you have written, when you provide content, when you produce content that is valuable, then that value will return to you in form of reward. It can return to you in form of greater impact, can return to you in form of greater reach. It can return to you in form of material benefits. It can return to you also in terms of expanding the network, and the space within which you do your work. So there are different forms of reward, but the starting point always is to be intentional about creating content, and then the value will follow, whether in the form of money or in other forms.
And I'll leave you with that final line: to be intentional about whatever you do for good. Follow us on Leadership TV, on YouTube, and on our other social media handles on leadership.ng. Thank you for coming on Money Radio today, Azu.
Thank you for having me, Julius. And I hope you're making enough money on Money Radio.
We'll read your book.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last